So how much gold would you need to be in the Millionaire Club? Well, the first rule of the Millionaire Club is probably that you don't talk about how much gold you have. But that won't stop us from trying to do the math. So if you're interested to know how much gold rich people have on average, well, there's a really good way to envision this. Just close your eyes and think of Scrooge McDuck swan diving into a room full of gold coins. That's what I do. Now, this is a question that comes up in the comments, and it is an interesting topic, at least academically. Is what I'm doing too much? Is what I'm doing too little? Is it weird? Is it risky? How would you know if you can't compare yourself to the rich people, right? Well, part of why this is interesting is simply because it's a secret. Turns out, rich people don't disclose how much gold they keep on hand. There are ways to get a pretty decent idea, though, at least on average. Capgemini and others administer surveys to high net worth individuals, so we can zero in a little bit more accurately than what we might find in a DuckTales cartoon. So let's start with the label. A high net worth individual is somebody with $1 million or more in wealth. So a millionaire. We don't need to get too specific here, but high net worth means you have between $1 and $5 million in liquid assets. Very high net worth, that's between 5 and 30 million. Ultra high net worth, it's over $30 million. That's in liquid assets. We can come back to why that matters, but for now we're looking at millionaires with between $1 and $5 million in liquid assets. Now, the most recent Capgemini report from 2024 says high net worth individuals increase their portfolio allocations to include 15% in alternative assets. Now, this is just a starting point. It lets us know we're on the right track. And alternative assets are things like commodities and digital assets. So it's code for gold and Bitcoin. Now, if we use other reports, other advice, other disclosures, we see gold holdings represent between 2 and 10% of liquid assets on average portfolios. So there's that word again, average. That's what we're looking for here. The highest percent of gold holdings on the low side of this range, so $1 million, and the lowest percentage of gold, 2%, on the high side of the range, which is $5 million, both come out to $100,000 in gold. That's the most likely case on average for millionaires. Now, we can debate what average means in the comments if we want, but we're looking for a base case here. And if we do the math and we use the reports, we're coming up with $100,000 in gold for a high net worth individual. Now, the Capgemini survey I mentioned earlier was released last year in June of 2024. We're still waiting for this year. So we can assume that the gold was purchased prior to the recent run-up in price. And I had made a video in March of 2023 showing that it took 55 ounces of gold to equal $100,000. That's what we're looking at here, 55 ounces. So in March of 2023, if you wanted to be on par with the gold holdings of the average millionaire, this would have done it, 55 ounces of gold. Well, let's fast forward to today, mid-April 2025, 2 years later. If you want to be in the Millionaire Club for gold holdings, having that same 2 to 5% of $1 to $5 million in liquid assets would mean having an average of $100,000 in gold. Well, now you need 30 ounces. The spot price of gold has rallied from $1,825 when I made that first video, March of 2023, all the way up to $3,325 today. So 55 ounces then would be worth the same in nominal USD value as 30 ounces today. I don't want to get too far off topic here, but you can see why we can't simply say X number of ounces and then stick with that forever if we're going off reported amounts in nominal dollar value. I want to take that further and look at the entire range, but before I do, I have a sponsored segment on a company we've introduced here before. And if the huge contrast to the amount of gold that it took to get to $100,000 from 2023 to now struck you, well, here's another thing that might strike you. I was just showing a relatively short period of time where gold increased 84%. Well, today's sponsor, Gold Mining Inc., is trading within a few cents of its 5-year lows, meaning they haven't yet seen the same run that gold has. As of April 16th, Gold Mining Inc.'s market cap is approximately $164 million USD. That's with no debt and $156 million in cash and equity holdings based on cash balances from February 28th, 2025 and closing prices from April 16th. And here's how that breaks out. Gold Mining Inc. owns 79% of USGO and just over 12% of GROY. 9.9 million shares of USGO are quoted at $107 million USD. 21.5 shares of GROY are quoted at $36 million, and then cash and equivalents is $7 million USD. So total, including other equities, is $156 million. But when the company originally acquired their dozen gold projects, the peak combined market caps of the companies that held them was approximately $850 million Canadian, which during that period of 2010 to 2012 was much closer to par with USD than it is today. The combined peak market cap was calculated based on each respective company's peak share price during the period prior to acquisition. So as you can see on screen, peak market cap of companies acquired, $850 million Canadian, 2010 to 2012. Current market cap of Gold Mining Inc., $146 million USD in 2025. Gold spot price, $1,925 in 2011, $3,300 in 2025. And like I mentioned, Gold Mining Inc. is trading for 84 cents right now, which is near its 5-year lows. So add up Gold Mining Inc.'s cash and publicly traded stock portfolio. The company owns a dozen gold properties containing an aggregate of 12.5 million ounces of gold equivalent estimated mineral resources in the measured and indicated category, and an additional 9.7 million ounces of gold equivalent estimated mineral resources in the inferred category. Now, all of this at a time when gold is trading at an all-time high and Gold Mining Inc. is near its COVID-19 lows. So put it all together, this is a good time to do your research on Gold Mining Inc. As always, don't just take my word on it. There will be links in the description. Now let's get back to how much gold you'd need to be on par with the average millionaire. We're going to widen our scope. Earlier, I gave an average number for the whole range. 30 ounces, that's your simple answer. If you want a single target at current spot price, that's it. 30 ounces. Well, the whole range would be $20,000 in gold on the low side, where you take the smallest range of the gold allocation and you apply that to the entry point into the high net worth category. So 2% of $1 million, all the way up to $500,000, where you take 10% of $5 million, which is the top of the high net worth category. So now we're looking at between $20,000 on the low end, $500,000 on the top end in gold. So that bookmarks the high net worth category, in other words, the millionaires. Now, in terms of gold weight, we're now looking at 6 ounces of gold at the start of that spectrum, all the way up to 149 ounces at the top. So if you wanted to know what the gold holdings of the first category of millionaires looked like, well, it's 6 ounces at one side of the spectrum, 149 ounces at the other. And if you wanted the short story, it's just 30 ounces of gold. So not enough to fill Scrooge McDuck's gold cellar, but still an impressive amount. Now, I mentioned the labels for high net worth individuals was important. I'm going to tell you why. The ultra high net worth individual has $30 million in liquid assets or more. And we know from Knight Frank reports that that category of individual holds between 2 and 6% of liquid assets in gold, which means that the 10% that we're using from just traditional advice is probably high for the higher end of that category. So we need a recap. There were so many numbers put out here. If we're looking for the quick answer of how much gold you would need to have to be on par with the average millionaire, it's 30 ounces. Pretty simple. Now we're going to take away that average. You're looking at a range between 6 and 75 ounces of gold now if we revise to that 6% allocation. And if you still don't feel like any of this captures your status as a high roller and you want to know what the Scrooge McDuck category looks like, well, you would need 2% of $30 million in gold to break into that ultra high net worth category. So $600,000 in gold now at a spot price of $3,325 an ounce means that you would need 180 ounces of gold. So sorry I can't visualize that for you here. You're still going to have to use Scrooge McDuck. So let's call it good there. Let us know in the comments what you think. 6 ounces? Well, that gets you into the Millionaire Club. It's very crazy how spot price has brought that down. 30 ounces if you want to be in the average, 180 in the big league. It's all fun math. It's probably also totally irrelevant, but let us know what you think. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to hear more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.